full swing at my aunt's sprawling estate. The air was thick with the scent of turkey and pretension as the successful adults gathered around the main dining table, while I was once again relegated to the kitchen with the children. At 32, I was apparently still not worthy of the adult table. Never mind that I owned the building where half of them worked. "Alexandra, dear," Aunt Margaret called out, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "be a good girl and help the children with their plates before joining them in the kitchen." I smiled, adjusting my Cartier watch worth more than her monthly mortgage payment. "Of course, Aunt Margaret." My cousin Thomas snickered from his privileged spot at the main table. "Still playing waitress, Alex? Some things never change." If he only knew that his law firm paid rent to one of my holding companies, he might have been less amused. My phone buzzed quietly, a message from my property management firm. "Rent increases approved for Richardson Law Group's lease. Implementation next month. Proceed," I typed back. "And schedule a building inspection. I'm suddenly concerned about their office space." Now, Uncle Philip chimed in from the head of the table, "someone has to look after the little ones. And since Alexandra hasn't managed to establish a real career." The irony almost made me laugh. Uncle Philip's successful consulting firm occupied 3 floors of my building, though the lease was through one of my shell companies. He had no idea that his monthly rent payments went straight to his unsuccessful niece. "Speaking of careers," Aunt Margaret continued, "Thomas just made senior partner. And Rebecca's medical practice is thriving in their new office space." Ah yes, Rebecca's medical practice, another tenant in my building. The space she'd gotten at such a bargain because the mysterious owner had offered preferential rates. They only knew. My phone buzzed again. "My real estate director. Richardson Consulting's lease up for renewal. Want to proceed with the 40% increase." "Hold that thought," I replied. "I have a better idea." "Alexandra," Uncle Philip called out, "before you go to the children's table, why don't you tell everyone what you've been up to? Still doing that little real estate thing?" The table fell silent, all eyes turning to me with that familiar mix of pity and condescension. "Something like that," I replied, reaching for my briefcase. "Actually, I've been meaning to discuss some business matters with all of you." Thomas laughed. "Business matters? What would you know about business?" I pulled out a stack of documents, taking my time arranging them. "Well, for starters, I know quite a bit about commercial real estate, particularly the Richardson building downtown." Uncle Philip's fork clattered against his plate. "What about it?" "It's interesting you should ask," I said, sliding the first document across the table. "I've been reviewing some lease agreements." The pristine white tablecloth now held a spread of documents that were far more interesting than Aunt Margaret's turkey. Property deeds, lease agreements, and rental contracts, all bearing my signature as owner. This can't be right," Thomas stuttered, his law partner expertise failing him as he read through the papers. "The Richardson building is owned by Summit Properties Group." "Summit Properties Group," I confirmed, "which is owned by Apex Holdings, which is owned by—" I paused for effect. Me. The silence around the table was absolute. Even the children in the kitchen had stopped their chatter, sensing the shift in atmosphere. "Impossible," Uncle Philip declared, but his hand shook as he reached for the documents. "Summit Properties is a multi-billion-dollar corporation." "Yes," I agreed pleasantly, "it is. And as CEO and majority shareholder, I've been quite interested in reviewing our tenant relationships, particularly with firms that have family connections." My phone buzzed, another message from my real estate team. "Maintenance inspection reports ready for Richardson building. Several code violations noted in law firm and consulting spaces." "Perfect timing," I typed back. "Schedule immediate inspections. Priority on floors 15 to 20. Exactly where Uncle Philip's and Thomas's offices were located. Rebecca, always the practical one, was rapidly calculating numbers on her phone. "The monthly rent for my medical practice goes directly to my holding company," I finished for her. "Along with the rent from Thomas's law firm, Uncle Philip's consulting company, and every other tenant in the building. Though I must say, some of these leases seem suspiciously under market value." Thomas's face reddened. "We negotiated those rates fairly." "With Summit's representatives, yes," I agreed. "But as owner, I never approved the special discounts you all seem to enjoy." An oversight I plan to correct immediately. My phone lit up with another message: Legal Department. Lease review complete. Multiple violations found in Richardson tenants' contracts. Send formal notices, I replied. Effective immediately. Aunt Margaret found her voice. But you're supposed to be. Supposed to be what? I asked softly. Failure. Unworthy of the adult table? Someone to pity and dismiss. I gestured to the documents. Tell me, Aunt Margaret, how much of your charity fundraising budget depends on donations from companies housed in my building? She paled visibly. The answer we both knew was most of it. This is absurd, Uncle Philip blustered. You expect us to believe you own the most prestigious office building downtown? Believe what you like, I said, pulling out my phone. Though you might want to check your email. The building management should be sending out notices about upcoming rent adjustments and mandatory inspections. As if on cue, phones around the table began buzzing. The color drained from faces as they read the messages. 40% increase? Thomas choked. This is extortion. This is business, I corrected. Unless you'd prefer to relocate? Though I should mention I also own the Miller Building on 5th and the Riverside Towers complex. Amazing how many little real estate things one can acquire while sitting at the children's table. Rebecca was still calculating. The security deposit alone will be reassessed, I confirmed. Along with all those maintenance requests you've been submitting. Funny how urgent repairs become when you realize who owns the building. My phone chimed again. Building management. Security access codes being updated as requested. New protocols effective tomorrow. Excellent. I typed back. Ensure all Richardson tenants require special clearance for after-hours access. Looking up at the stunned faces around the table, I continued. Oh, and you'll all need new security passes. The old ones won't work after midnight. Building safety protocols, you understand. You can't do this, Uncle Philip protested. Our leases are subject to owner review, I finished. Section 12, paragraph 3. Though I'm sure Thomas can explain the legal details. He's such a successful lawyer after all. Thomas was frantically flipping through the lease agreement, his face growing paler by the second. Finding the clause? I asked sweetly. It's right after the section about owners' rights to conduct surprise inspections. Speaking of which, how's that unauthorized office renovation coming along, cousin? He dropped the papers like they were on fire. My phone buzzed with another update. Maintenance. Code violations documented in Richardson Consulting's recent renovations. Immediate action required. Schedule emergency inspection, I replied. Tomorrow morning should be interesting. Alexandra, Aunt Margaret tried again, her voice honeyed. Surely we can discuss this like family. Family. I raised an eyebrow. Was it family when you banished me to the children's table? When you mocked my career choices? When you treated me like a failure while living in buildings I owned? Standing up, I gathered my documents. You know what the funny thing is? If any of you had bothered to treat me like an adult, you might have gotten those special lease rates you thought you'd negotiated. Amazing how property owners appreciate respectful tenants. What do you want? Uncle Philip asked, defeat creeping into his voice. Want? I laughed. I have everything I want. A successful company, a thriving real estate empire, and the delicious opportunity to show my family exactly who they've been dismissing all these years. My phone lit up with the day's schedule for tomorrow. 9 a.m. Richardson Building Code inspections. 11 a.m. Lease review meetings. 2 p.m. Security protocol updates. 4 p.m. Tenant compliance review. Perfect, I thought. Nothing like a full day of landlord duties to remind people of their place. One last thing, I said, pausing at the dining room door. About the children's table. I smiled. I've decided to donate it, along with this entire dining set, to charity. Consider it my contribution to Aunt Margaret's fundraising efforts. Though you might want to find new donors for next year's gala. Your usual supporters might be a bit preoccupied with their new lease terms. The silence behind me was broken only by the sound of shattered illusions and the quiet sobs of realized consequences. Oh, and Uncle Philip? I called over my shoulder. The building's heating system is being upgraded next week. Your floors will be first right in time for the coldest week of the year. Don't worry, it's only scheduled to take a month or two. As I walked to my car, a Bentley parked conspicuously in front of Aunt Margaret's house. I heard the chaos erupting behind me. Phones ringing, voices raising, careers crumbling. My phone buzzed one final time. Building security. New access protocols in place. Richardson tenants status updated to restricted access. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just proving your success. It's showing exactly how much power you've had all along. Welcome to my building family. Don't forget to check in with security. After all, children aren't allowed in the building without adult supervision. And as of tomorrow, none of you qualify as adults in my property. Funny how a simple change of tables can shift the whole power dynamic. See you at next